The Silent Arrival. Captain Marcus Chen stood in the observation deck of the Earth Defense Station Vigilance, staring out at the scattered lights of distant stars. He had been stationed here for 8 years, watching the emptiness of space with the patience of a man who had accepted that his job was mostly ceremonial. Humanity had been exploring space for nearly 2 centuries, building colonies on Mars and Europa, sending probes to distant star systems, and finding nothing but silence. The universe seemed empty of intelligent life, and Marcus had come to believe that Earth was alone. That belief shattered at exactly 4:17 in the morning when the alarms began screaming through every corridor of the station. Marcus was drinking coffee in the cafeteria when the sound hit. He dropped his cup and ran, his boots pounding against the metal floor as he raced toward the command center. Other officers were running too, their faces pale with confusion and fear. In 8 years, Marcus had never heard these particular alarms. They were reserved for only one scenario, an incoming threat from deep space. He burst through the doors of the command center and found chaos. Screens were flashing with data, voices were shouting over each other, and in the center of it all stood Lieutenant Sarah Kim, her hands moving frantically across her console. She was 26 years old, brilliant with numbers, and right now she looked absolutely terrified. Marcus grabbed her shoulder, and she jumped, turning to face him with wide eyes. "Captain, we have incoming signatures," she said, her voice shaking. "Multiple contacts, origin point approximately 40 light-years from Earth. They're moving fast, faster than anything we've ever recorded." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "How many contacts?" Sarah's hands trembled as she pulled up the data on the main display screen. Marcus looked up and felt the blood drain from his face. The screen showed a 3-dimensional map of the solar system, and approaching from the outer edge was a cloud of red dots. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The computer was still counting, the number climbing higher with each passing second. "Current count is 9,683 ships, Sarah whispered. "Captain, they're still coming. The number keeps going up." Marcus gripped the edge of the console to steady himself. 9,000 ships. Earth's entire defense fleet consisted of 412 vessels, most of them designed for patrol duty and asteroid mining operations. They had 37 ships that could actually fight in a real battle. 37 against 9,000. The math was brutal and simple. Earth was defenseless. "Have we attempted communication?" Marcus asked, forcing his voice to stay calm even though his heart was hammering in his chest. "Yes, sir. We've been broadcasting on all known frequencies for the past 10 minutes. No response. They're not talking to us, they're not slowing down, they're not doing anything except heading straight for Earth." Marcus stared at the screen, watching the red dots move closer. Each dot represented a ship, and each ship probably carried weapons powerful enough to level a city. He thought about his sister living in Singapore, his parents in their retirement home in Colorado, the 3 billion people on Earth who were sleeping peacefully, unaware that their world was about to change forever. He thought about all the children who would wake up tomorrow to find the sky filled with alien warships. "Get me Admiral Torres," he said quietly. "Activate all defense stations. Recall every ship we have in the outer system, and someone wake up the president of the United Earth Council. Tell them we have a situation." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. News of the alien fleet spread across Earth like wildfire. Some people panicked and fled to underground shelters. Others gathered in churches, mosques, and temples to pray. The stock markets crashed within an hour. Governments declared states of emergency. The United Earth Council held an emergency session and authorized the mobilization of every military asset humanity possessed. Admiral Elena Torres arrived at Station Vigilance 6 hours after the initial detection. She was a 62-year-old veteran who had commanded Earth's defense forces for the past decade. She had iron gray hair cut short, dark eyes that missed nothing, and a reputation for being absolutely fearless. But when she walked into the command center and saw the screen showing the alien fleet, Marcus noticed her hand shake just slightly before she clasped it behind her back. "Status report," she said crisply. Marcus brought up the latest data. The fleet has maintained steady approach speed. Current count is 9,704 ships. They'll reach the orbit of Neptune in approximately 62 hours. We've sent communication attempts every 15 minutes. Still no response.
"What do we know about them?"
"Very little, Admiral. Our long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures unlike anything in our databases. The ships appear to be using some kind of propulsion system that doesn't match any known technology. Size estimates vary, but the largest vessels appear to be approximately 5 kilometers long." Admiral Torres was silent for a moment, studying the screen. Then she turned to face the assembled officers. "We need to assume hostile intent," she said. "A fleet this size doesn't travel 40 light years for a friendly visit. We need to prepare for invasion." Over the next 2 days, Earth transformed into a fortress. Every available ship was recalled and armed. Orbital defense platforms that had been designed for asteroid deflection were hastily retrofitted with weapons. Ground-based missile batteries were activated. Civilian shuttles were converted into evacuation transports. It wasn't nearly enough, everyone knew that, but humanity had never been good at giving up without a fight. Marcus barely slept during those 2 days. He stayed in the command center, monitoring the approaching fleet, coordinating with other defense stations, trying to find some way to improve their impossible odds. Sarah Kim worked beside him the entire time, her fingers flying across keyboards, running simulation after simulation. Every simulation ended the same way, with Earth's defenses overwhelmed in less than an hour. On the 3rd day, something strange happened. Sarah noticed it first. She had been tracking individual ships in the alien fleet, giving them identification numbers, plotting their trajectories. She was exhausted, surviving on coffee and adrenaline, but her mind was still sharp enough to spot the anomaly. "Captain," she said suddenly, her voice rising with confusion, "I'm showing a discrepancy in the fleet count." Marcus looked up from the tactical display he had been studying. "What kind of discrepancy?" "Ships are missing. 342 ships that were there an hour ago are no longer showing on sensors. They just vanished." Marcus felt a cold sensation in his stomach. He walked over to her station and looked at her screen. She was right. The fleet count had dropped from 9,704 to 9,362. 300 ships had disappeared without any sign of weapons fire, without any debris field, without any explanation.
"Where did they disappear?" he asked. Sarah pulled up a star chart and highlighted a region of space. "Here, this area near the Kuiper Belt. We've always had trouble getting clear sensor readings from this region. We call it the dead zone. Equipment malfunctions, signal interference." Marcus knew the dead zone well. For decades, scientists had studied it, trying to understand why probes sent into that area always lost contact. Some theorized it was a natural phenomenon, some kind of spatial distortion or magnetic field. Others had suggested more exotic explanations, but nobody really knew. What Marcus did know was that the alien fleet had just flown through the dead zone, and a significant portion of them had ceased to exist. He immediately sent a priority message to the alien fleet warning them about the dead zone, explaining that ships traveling through that region of space disappeared. He didn't expect a response, and he didn't get one. The aliens continued their approach, flying directly toward the area where 300 of their ships had vanished. Over the next 8 hours, more ships disappeared. First, another 100, then 200, then 500 at once. Each time, the ships were in or near the dead zone. Each time, there was no explosion, no distress signal, no evidence of what happened to them. The ships were simply there one moment and gone the next, as if they had been erased from existence. Admiral Torres stood beside Marcus, watching the fleet numbers drop. Her face was grim, but there was a spark of hope in her eyes. "Whatever is happening out there," she said quietly, "it's doing our job for us." "But what is it?" Marcus asked. "What can make ships disappear like that?" Before the Admiral could answer, Sarah gasped from her station. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's coming from inside the dead zone. The signal is weak, but it's definitely there. It's using one of the alien communication frequencies." "Can you translate it?" Marcus asked, moving quickly to her side. Sarah's fingers worked frantically, running the signal through their translation algorithms. It took almost a minute, but finally text appeared on her screen. She read it aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "Help us. Something is here. We cannot see it. We cannot fight it. Our weapons do nothing. It is taking our ships. Please help us. Something is here." The command center fell completely silent. Every person in the room stared at the screen, at those desperate words from an enemy that had come to destroy Earth and was now begging for help. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Out there in the darkness of the dead zone, something ancient and powerful was awake. Something that could make warships vanish without a trace. Something that the alien fleet, with all their advanced technology, could not even see. He walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond human sight, beyond human understanding, something was protecting Earth. Or perhaps it was just hungry. Marcus didn't know which possibility frightened him more. The alien fleet continued its approach, but now there were only 6,000 ships left. And with every hour that passed, that number kept falling.
Earth had been saved from invasion, but no one knew what the cost would be. The truth in the void. The alien fleet had stopped moving. For the first time since their detection, the remaining 6,000 ships held position at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, just outside the boundary of the dead zone. They sat in space like frightened animals, unwilling to advance but unable to retreat. Marcus watched them on the display screen, those tiny red dots frozen in place, and wondered what conversations were happening aboard those vessels. Were they arguing? Were they planning? Were they as terrified as the humans watching them? Dr. Rebecca Walsh arrived at Station Vigilance 18 hours after the alien fleet stopped. She was a physicist who had spent 30 years studying the dead zone, publishing papers that most people ignored, requesting funding that was rarely approved. She was 54 years old with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, and she carried a worn leather briefcase that looked like it had traveled around the world several times. When she walked into the command center, she moved with the confidence of someone who finally had everyone's attention. "Captain Chen," she said, extending her hand, "I believe I can explain what's happening out there." Marcus shook her hand and gestured to the display screen. "Please, Doctor, any insight would be welcome." Rebecca opened her briefcase and pulled out a tablet covered in handwritten notes and diagrams. 28 years ago, I sent a probe into the dead zone. It was an unauthorized mission, technically illegal, and I nearly lost my position because of it. But that probe sent back 3 minutes and 47 seconds of data before contact was lost. In that time, it detected something extraordinary. She connected her tablet to the command center's main display. Images appeared on the screen, blurry and distorted, but showing distinct geometric shapes floating in the darkness of space. The shapes were massive, each one easily the size of a small moon, and they were clearly artificial. Smooth surfaces, perfect angles, structures that could not possibly be natural. "What are they?" Admiral Torres asked, leaning forward to study the images. "I don't know exactly," Rebecca admitted, "but I've spent 3 decades analyzing this data. These structures are old, older than human civilization, possibly older than humanity itself. They emit a low-frequency energy field that interferes with most sensors and communication equipment. That's why we've never been able to study the dead zone properly. But more importantly, they seem to be reactive." "Reactive to what?" Marcus asked. "To intent, to purpose, to the nature of whatever enters their space." Rebecca pulled up another set of data showing energy readings. "Every probe we've sent into the dead zone has been peaceful, designed for observation and study. Most of them lost contact, but a few survived long enough to send back data. But this alien fleet came with weapons charged, shields raised, clearly prepared for combat. The structures in the dead zone responded differently to them." Sarah Kim spoke up from her station. "You're saying these structures are intelligent? That they can tell the difference between a peaceful probe and a warship?"
"I'm saying they were designed to do exactly that," Rebecca replied. "These aren't random artifacts. They're a defense system placed here deliberately by someone or something that wanted to protect this region of space." Admiral Torres crossed her arms. "Protect it from what?" "From invasion, from conquest, from exactly what this alien fleet was trying to do." The words hung in the air. Marcus felt something shift in his understanding of the situation. Earth hadn't been saved by luck or chance. They had been saved by design, by ancient guardians that had been waiting in the darkness for millions of years, watching for threats, ready to act when needed. "We need to communicate with whatever is in the dead zone," Marcus said. "If it's intelligent, if it can understand intent, then maybe it can understand a message." Rebecca nodded slowly. "I was hoping you would say that. I've been preparing a probe for this exact scenario. It carries no weapons, no defensive systems, nothing that could be interpreted as hostile. Instead, it broadcasts a simple message in multiple languages and mathematical sequences. The message says, 'We seek understanding. We mean no harm. We wish to learn.'" "Will it work?" Admiral Torres asked. "There's only one way to find out." 4 hours later, Rebecca's probe launched from Station Vigilance. Marcus watched it go, a small silver dart disappearing into the darkness, carrying humanity's hopes on its fragile hull. The probe crossed into the dead zone, and everyone in the command center held their breath, waiting for it to vanish like the alien ships had. It didn't vanish. The probe kept transmitting, kept flying deeper into the dead zone, sending back clear signals, and then something answered. The response didn't come through radio waves or any conventional communication method.
Instead, it appeared directly on every screen in the command center simultaneously, text forming in perfect English as if typed by invisible hands.
Welcome, young ones. We have been waiting for you.
Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Beside him, Sarah gasped. Admiral Torres straightened, her eyes fixed on the screen. Rebecca Walsh smiled, tears running down her cheeks.
Waiting for us?
Marcus typed back using the communication console. Who are you? The response came faster this time. We are the Archive. We were created by the First Makers, a civilization that existed 3 billion years before your son was born. When the First Makers reached the end of their physical existence, they transcended into something beyond matter and energy. But before they left, they created us to watch over the young species that would emerge in the galaxy, to protect them until they were ready to stand on their own. Sarah's hand shook as she read the words. 3 billion years old, she whispered. How is that possible? We exist outside of normal time, the Archive responded, apparently able to read their conversations. We do not age, we do not decay. We simply wait and watch, generation after generation, species after species, hoping to find those worthy of protection. Admiral Torres stepped forward. The alien fleet that was approaching Earth, what happened to them? They came with weapons charged and hostile intent clear in their communications. Their target was your world. Their purpose was conquest and subjugation. We have encountered this particular alliance before. They call themselves the Galactic Sovereignty, a coalition of 12 elder species who have ruled this region of space for 14,000 years. They have discovered 263 younger species during that time. They offered each one the same choice: submit to their rule or be destroyed. Marcus felt sick. How many chose to submit? 97 species became subjects of the sovereignty, their populations enslaved, their resources extracted, their cultures erased. The remaining 166 species chose to fight. All of them were annihilated. Not a single survivor remained.
The sovereignty does not believe in mercy.
The command center was silent. Marcus thought about those 166 extinct species, entire civilizations wiped from existence, billions of individuals whose names and dreams and histories were lost forever. He thought about how close Earth had come to becoming number 167. And the ships that disappeared, he asked, are they destroyed? No, we do not kill. That is against our fundamental programming. The ships and their crews have been placed in a preservation field, a pocket dimension where they exist in suspended animation. They are alive but frozen, unable to act or escape. They will remain there until the sovereignty demonstrates a genuine commitment to peace, or until the end of time, whichever comes first. You've done this before, Rebecca said, understanding dawning in her eyes. How many other fleets have you captured? 47 fleets over the past 14,000 years. The sovereignty keeps sending ships to conquer young species in this region of space. We keep removing those ships from the timeline. They have lost approximately 300,000 vessels to our defenses, yet they continue. Their arrogance is remarkable. Admiral Torres shook her head in disbelief. Why didn't you stop them completely? Why didn't you go to their home worlds and end the sovereignty once and for all? Because we cannot choose based on what might happen. We can only act based on what does happen. We protect the innocent from aggression, but we cannot start wars. That would make us no better than those we oppose.
The First Makers were very clear about this limitation. We are guardians, not conquerors.
Marcus understood the logic, but it frustrated him. The Archive had the power to end the sovereignty's reign of terror, but it was bound by ancient rules that prevented it from taking offensive action. It could only react, only defend, only wait for the sovereignty to make the same mistake over and over again. Why did you save us specifically? Sarah asked. What made Earth different from the other species the sovereignty attacked? The Archive's response filled the screen, and Marcus felt emotions swell in his chest as he read the words. You were the first to ask a question. Every other species we have encountered responded to the unknown with fear or aggression. They sent weapons into the dead zone or avoided it completely. You sent a message of peace. You said, we seek understanding. That simple act of curiosity, that willingness to communicate before attacking, that desire to learn rather than destroy, it showed us what you truly are. A species that asks questions is a species that can grow. A species that seeks understanding is a species worth protecting.
Rebecca was openly crying now. Sarah wiped her eyes. Even Admiral Torres looked moved. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. Humanity had been saved not by weapons or technology or military strength, but by curiosity, by the simple human instinct to ask questions and seek knowledge.
What happens now? Marcus asked. The sovereignty will learn what happened to their fleet. They'll send more ships. Yes, the archive agreed. They always do, but now you know the truth. Now you know you're not alone. Now you know that ancient forces watch over you, that the universe contains wonders and protections beyond your current understanding. And most importantly, now the sovereignty knows that this region of space is permanently protected. They can send as many fleets as they wish. We will be here, waiting, as we have been for 3 billion years. On the edge of the Kuiper Belt, the remaining 6,000 ships of the sovereignty fleet began to withdraw. They turned slowly, reluctantly, and started the long journey back to their territory. They had come to conquer Earth and found instead something they could not fight, could not understand, could not overcome. The message they would carry home was simple. Earth was protected by forces older than stars, and any future attack would end the same way. Marcus stood at the observation window, watching the alien ships retreat until they were nothing but distant points of light. Beside him, Rebecca Walsh smiled with satisfaction, her life's work finally validated. Sarah Kim was already writing reports that would change humanity's understanding of the universe, and Admiral Torres was making plans, knowing that Earth was safe, but that the galaxy was far larger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. We've been given a gift, Marcus said quietly, a chance to grow, to learn, to become something better. Yes, the archive's words appeared on a nearby screen. Use it wisely. We will be watching, as we have always watched, hoping that humanity will fulfill the potential we see in you. Let it guide you into tomorrow. Curiosity saved you today. The screens went dark. The archive had said what it needed to say. Out in the dead zone, ancient structures continued their eternal vigil, waiting for the next threat, ready to protect the curious species that had finally asked the right question. Earth had survived its first contact with hostile alien life, not through violence, but through the simple human desire to understand the universe. And somewhere in the government buildings of the Galactic Sovereignty, leaders gathered in emergency councils, trying to explain how they had lost another fleet to the mysterious dead zone. They would rage and threaten and plan. But deep down, they would wonder if perhaps they had encountered something they should leave alone. Something ancient, something powerful, something that had chosen humanity as worthy of protection. The universe had just become much larger and much stranger. But for the first time in its history, humanity knew it had a guardian, and that changed everything. If this epic conclusion gave you chills, smash that like button right now. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another incredible HFY story. Share this video with everyone who loves tales of humanity's courage and curiosity. Drop a comment below telling us what you thought of Earth's ancient guardian. Thank you for watching, and remember, humanity's greatest weapon has always been our desire to understand.